the sham Senate vote on the Green New Deal, Democrats are figuring out what the best strategy is moving forward in passing legislation that would combat or at least mitigate climate change. Now, it does appear that some of the Democrats are pivoting away from the Green New Deal, but they still want to do something about climate change. So for instance, according to The Hill, various supporters of the climate change measure, including AOC, are focusing on new, smaller bills in an effort to get back on the offensive on climate change heading into 2020. So before we move on with other details to this story, I think framing is everything, and I'm trying to understand whether or not The Hill is inaccurately framing this. Because the Green New Deal wasn't legislation, it was a non-binding resolution. It was a list of goals, it was a list of ambitions, it wasn't legislation to vote on. And so the whole point of the Green New Deal was to create a framework in which real legislation can be written. And so they're framing it as they're moving away from the Green New Deal and they're focusing on smaller bills. But I don't know if they're really moving away from the Green New Deal. I feel like what they're doing is still using the Green New Deal as the framework, as was intended, to draw out legislation.
There's a little bit of wordplay here. So it was a non-binding resolution, so it would not have had the force of law. What they're now going to introduce are bills, which would have the force of law. And so that's not necessarily I mean, you can't say they're moving away from the Green New Deal if the Green New Deal vote that just happened was about a non-binding resolution. So the question isn't whether they're moving away from it. The question is, are they choosing to do it in separate, distinct parts and bills, as opposed to one grand bill, a huge bill?
So let me just give you the headline of this piece so you understand where I'm coming from. The headline reads, Democrats to move on from Green New Deal, which makes it seem as though Democrats have accepted that they've lost and now they're moving on to something else.
No, I totally agree with you. And I read it the same way you did, the body of the article as well. Like, okay, they're trying to pick up the pieces after they lost. No, no, they're, in fact, and in only one part of the article they mentioned this, and then this part is correct. No, now they're going on the offense to actually get bills passed that would be part of the Green New Deal. It's not like they're going to something else, and it's not like they're going to something that is less effective or not part of their overall strategy. It is exactly part of their overall strategy.
So let's hear from Senator Ed Markey. He spoke to The Hill and he said the following: we're now in the process where the hearings have started on the House side. Committee after committee have had their first hearings that haven't been held for 8 years. And ideas and legislation will start emanating from committee after committee, looking specifically at what has to happen. So I love that statement because it just goes to show you that even though this ridiculous vote happened, the vote that Mitch McConnell pushed for political reasons, in reality, there's an important discussion happening in Congress that wasn't happening for the past 8 years.
Right, and highlighting that does get us to how do we actually achieve the proposed ideas behind the Green New Deal in actuality.
Exactly,
and that's really where we need to get to anyway, in order to actually implement not just legislation, but to find funding for that legislation as well to move those proposals forward. And that is happening around the Hill. And the question is whether these committees actually move forward with meaningful legislation, whether they're talking to each other when they come up with it and all of that, which is kind of standard of what goes on in Washington, but they are using the positive overall concept of the Green New Deal in order to have those conversations and move stuff forward.
Yeah, so look, I think that the most important thing is how far they move the ball in that now Republicans are scrambling to figure out how they can pretend to be in favor of fighting climate change. That's a giant difference. I'm gonna get the details of that in one sec, but I do wanna say, look, we're objective here, so I don't agree with the Democrats in voting present on that non-binding resolution. And the reporting is, and I haven't talked to her or her staff about it, that AOC sanctioned that. If she did, fine, I disagree. I don't think they should have done that. I think the optics of it were bad, and I think it has partly led the mainstream media / establishment to write headlines like this. So, but that's okay, because what's more important is the policy rather than the day-to-day politics of it.
And what's also incredibly important, and I know I'm looking ahead, but all of the political strategy and all the hard work that's happening right now among members of Congress who actually understand the severity of climate change means nothing if we don't elect someone as president who actually believes that climate change is occurring and wants to do something about it, right? So that's why it's so incredibly important that throughout the primary process on the Democrat side, we pick the right person who does want to make this issue part of their platform, who does talk about it. It's front and center in their campaign, and and of course we need someone who's not a Republican.
Well, think about how much strength makes a difference. To the point that Anna was just making, if the press is right, all the Democratic senators checked with a freshman congresswoman to see if it was the right way to vote. What? That is unprecedented by a country mile.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
It's boss.
That's right.
She's such a boss.
Well, she had that great line that that's my new motto. She said, "Until you do it, I'm the boss." Right? Okay. Meaning, like, go for it. I want you to do it. I want you to take action, whoever you are, right? Yeah. And so, but until, like, if you're not taking action, I'm going to go forward. And so, one incredibly strong freshman congressperson has moved the entire Congress. Imagine what a progressive president could do.
You know,
sorry. Let me just get to the Republicans for a second. Lamar Alexander is a Republican senator from Tennessee. He now says, "I believe that human emissions are a major cause of climate change."
Boom.
Okay, we're moving Republicans, man. And he said, but that's the small part of it. The big part of it is, he said, "I believe we need a 5-year project like the one on the scale of what we did to get the atomic bomb." Okay, and he said, "We have to use American research and technology to put our country and our world firmly on the path toward cleaner, cheaper energy." AOC didn't say that. A Republican senator from Tennessee said that. I mean, look, the Green New Deal's about a 10-year plan. Now you got a Republican senator going, "No, 5-year plan." Then Lindsey Graham, of all people, Mitt Romney, and Alexander came out and said, "Okay, fine, we got a different plan, but we got a plan. We're going to incentivize businesses to make investment in carbon technologies." Now, is it a good plan? No. But now they're scrambling for the first time ever to come up with a plan to fight climate change. Proceed from strength.
Yes, exactly. And this is something, like, even if their ideas and their proposals right now are not good, step number one, and this was a difficult step to accomplish, was to get them to concede that climate change is real and that it's caused by human activity. And so already there's been a giant win, and giant wins deserve what? Pitbull horns.
Okay, they
proceed.
Do. I was actually in a meeting with Congressman Khanna before she was elected, before that all happened, the end of last year, and we were talking about how we can fund things like building the country, infrastructure building and so forth. Like, how do we take money that's going into sort of Wall Street speculation and sort of redirect it into the real economy for, like, real people and real jobs and, you know, so the real environment. And he at the time was like, "Well, what about this Green New Deal?"
Interesting.
And this was before she even came into office, and the conversation went along the lines with that. That's exactly part of it, because the Green New Deal, yes, it is about fighting climate change, and yes, it's about protecting our environment and our resources, but there's also a very strong economic component to it. The fact that we were even calling it the New Deal, there was an economic component to FDR's New Deal. The idea was to regulate industries that are harming the country and the world, and to stimulate and subsidize industries and platforms and proposals that will help. And that in turn created jobs, and it created sort of a stronger economy, stronger country. This is saying, well, we're at a point right now where we have other problems coming in, which is our environmental situation and climate change. And there's ways to make that also a positive economic proposal as well.
Absolutely.
The largest growth in jobs that the BLS, Bureau of Labor Stats, just came out with last month, and also for the end of last year, is in green jobs. I mean, these are not like fake jobs. These are like actual people getting actual jobs in actual green industries that are actually promoting, climate benefit to everybody.
Yes.
The number of jobs in the solar industry now far outweighs the number of jobs in the coal industry. So, okay, keep it real on that. Rihanna Gunright, who is co-founder and executive director of New Consensus, who's working on that's a people's think tank that's working on the plans for a Green New Deal, was on the Young Turks yesterday, and she talked about how we will have significant legislation, she said, in about a 6-month range. So it is coming. They're not going to wait. They're going to do it now. And finally, back to the Republicans, Matt Gaetz. I mean, the worst of the worst in the House, the biggest Trump loyalist there is. He's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm introducing a bill, and it's going to be called the Green Real Deal.
He's so lame.
Okay,
God.
so he is lame, and of course it'll be packed with every kind of goodie for his donors, who are all welfare queens, corporations that live off the American taxpayers. It will do nothing to solve it. I can tell you that ahead of time. This guy's a complete and utter fraud. But think about it. The Green New Deal is so popular, and that now they're having to reframe ultra right-wing positions as if it's the Green New Deal. He's like, oh, it's popular? I'm gonna try to steal it. I'll call mine the Green Real Deal. What happened? I thought it wasn't popular. What happened? I thought that you guys were gonna run on it. It looks like you're starting to run towards it instead of trying to run against it. Oops.
It's okay, just accept it, Matt Gaetz. You know you like it.
What did we tell you guys, man? And you were part of doing this, Young Turks audience. We said the strong progressives will actually lead towards policy, and we were right.